Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are Team Robolution. I'm Jenny, and beside me are Perry and Min. As you may have heard or even seen in your industry, there has been a rise of robotics with its capability getting closer to the capabilities of a human. With this breakthrough in technology, our team attempts to evaluate the use of robotics. Is it worth the investment? This is what we will be covering today, from an overview of the robotics to our case study and our analysis on robotics, and finally our conclusion. Firstly, let me bring you through an overview of the robotics market. Robots are most commonly used in the automotive industry, and the use of robots is increasing at an amazing rate of 9.5%, selling close to 180,000 robots and reaching a sales value of $9.5 billion US. These huge figures is resulted with China being the largest robotics market with a share of 20%, followed by Japan, US, Korea, and Germany, which collectively made up 50% of the market. With robots being most commonly used in the automotive industry, it is unsurprising that these major markets for robotics are also the top 5 countries that has the highest motor vehicle production in 2014. Now, narrowing to the robotics market in Singapore, with the goal of positioning ourselves as the leading advanced manufacturing hub in the region, robots are widely used in various stages of our supply chain. For instance, we have the robots that polish marine propeller in the manufacturing stage, robots as warehousing solution in the distribution stage, and even delivery robots in the healthcare sector. Now, we will move on to look at a company in Singapore that has recently started using robots to solve their warehousing problems. Texas Instruments is a global company operating in 35 countries. Some of its products include the semiconductor chips, which make up their main business, and the graphing calculators, which some of us may have used during our school days. So now you may wonder, why did Texas consider the use of robots, even though the cost of robotics is very high? So with that, we need to first look at the key problems that are faced by Texas Instruments in the first place. Firstly, the significant growth in volume that Texas faces drives them to look for alternative ways to increase their existing warehouse capacity. However, there are restrictions to the amount of usable space in the warehouse horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, they need to set aside space for the movement of forklifts and workers, and vertically, they need to comply with a safety height limit. Furthermore, coupled with a tightening of manpower policy in Singapore, it has become more economically challenging for Texas Instruments to increase their manpower to meet their expanding business. Therefore, with all these problems faced by Texas Instruments, they look for alternative warehousing solutions, which Perry will now elaborate. Perry, please.
Thank you, Jenny. With these problems faced by Texas, they have 2 alternatives. Number 1, to be the first semiconductor company to install AutoStore, which is an automated warehouse system, or 2, to build a warehouse in Malaysia. Now, on the first glance, it may seem that Malaysia seems to be the better deal, as it can offer us cheap land and cheap labor. However, before we jump into any conclusions, let me first illustrate how AutoStore works. These are the 4 activities that occur in Texas warehouse on a typical day. 1, goods arrival. 2, goods transport. 3, goods storage. And 4, goods packaging. Let me elaborate each stage in detail. When goods arrive in AutoStore in Texas, it comes in the form of wooden pallets, and employees will sort them out into 2 characteristics, namely size and turnover rate. Slow-moving and bulky items will be transported to manual shelving region, whereas the faster-moving items, like the semiconductor chips, will be moved on to the next stage. The employee here will then move these semiconductor chips into the transportation bin, which will then be conveyed by the conveyor belt to the storage facility. The controller at the storage facility will then move these semiconductor chips into the storage bin. And then it will actually scan a barcode so that the system can keep a computerized record of the entire exact location of each item. The robots will then bring these storage bins into the storage facility. Now let me just illustrate how this whole entire robotic system works with a diagram. Initially, the robot with the auto store bin will move to the desired location, drop the box with the use of ropes, and then return back to its original position for further instructions. For retrieval, the process is simply reversed. But you may ask, what if the bottom orange box has to be retrieved? Simply, we will just take out the top box, and then we move it to an empty location before retrieving the orange box back to the desired location. In AutoStore, Texas has used 36 robots, and this number can be further increased to reduce the throughput time through which the parcels are retrieved. Dimensions-wise, AutoStore is 108 bins wide, 16 bins high, and 38 rows deep. This translates to about 63,000 bins for AutoStore. The extent of automation stops here, but activities still carry on in the warehouse to the fourth stage, in goods packaging. However, this stage is currently manually done because robotics is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Texas needs to package different shapes and sizes of packages, and hence it may be economically challenging for Texas to automate this system. Now let me just bring you back to the original question. Should AutoStore or should Texas use AutoStore or warehouse in Malaysia? Despite the initial outright investment of $10 million, we feel that Texas should still use AutoStore due to the long-term benefits that they will enjoy. Let's take a look at the 3 benefits that we have identified. First, productivity will improve by 40%. This is because the robots will be able to operate during non-operating hours like late at night. Secondly, storage capacity will also increase by 4-fold. And this means that they are now able to store up to 2 billion semiconductor chips. This is to cope with the expanding business that my first speaker has mentioned previously. Lastly, manpower reduction will also reduce all the way from 200 to 20. This also addresses the problem of the tightening of manpower policy in Singapore. With these benefits in mind, let me now hand over my time to Min, who will be discussing on some potential applications through which this AutoStore can be used to help companies better manage their supply chain.
Thank you, Perry. Now that we have seen the benefits that AutoStore has brought to Texas Instruments, the next question would be, can AutoStore be applied across different industries and used more widely? Unfortunately, the answer is that it's not very easy. One of the main issues with AutoStore is that it has a very prohibitive cost. Texas Instruments spent over $10 million to install AutoStore, and that is excluding the future costs for maintenance and repair. With such a high cost, small and medium-sized companies wouldn't be able to invest in AutoStore without spending a significant amount of resources. Thus, our group has come to a conclusion for this potential problem, and that is to share AutoStore between companies. So how would this be done? Instead of a group of small companies renting their warehousing space separately, they could put all of their inventory together into an AutoStore managed by one company. And our group believes that the best type of company to manage such an AutoStore would be a third-party logistic, because managing multiple inventories is a task that requires high-level expertise. Additionally, we also believe that the best type of company to collaborate with a 3PL in such an arrangement would be small online retailers. So why small online retailers? Let's answer this question from Singapore's perspective. Sorry. So according to a research done by PayPal, the Singapore e-commerce market has grown steadily over the past 5 years, from 1.1 billion in 2010 to about 4.4 billion in this year. Additionally, according to the IDA, the percentage of internet users who do online shopping has increased from 36% in 2008 to about 50% in 2011. So this dramatic rise in the use of e-commerce has come because of 3 main reasons. Firstly, the use of mobile phone, which make online shopping easier, has been increased very largely. And according to the IDA, Singapore has one of the highest mobile phone penetration rate in the world at about 150% in 2014. Secondly, for online shopping, customers can find lower price easier, and they also have a wider range of selection to choose from. And lastly, online shopping is a very easy and convenient solution for many Singaporeans who are typically tired after a day work. So the biggest players in the market right now are Amazon with 23% market shares, Q10 with 15% market shares, and Zalora. However, besides these big players, there are also many small online retailers such as SMEs. An estimated 15% of SMEs have their own websites with full e-commerce functionality. And it is these companies that we want to target for our auto store sharing idea. So how would such an arrangement between small online retailers and 3PL company work? In our proposal, the small online retailers would pay a fee and then hand over their inventory to a 3PL company. The 3PL would then put this inventory into an auto store, and then a program will be set up to link between the auto store and the online orders received by the online retailers. Thus, whenever a customer's order is received, the relevant goods will be retrieved by the auto store robot and sent directly to the customers without having to go through the retailer. So what are the benefits from such an arrangement for both parties? Well, for online retailers, they get to access the benefits auto store without having to invest too much money in it. Secondly, they also get to enjoy a complete logistics solution from goods receipt, storage, to picking, packaging, and delivery. Lastly, they also get to enjoy an increase in the speed of completion of their customers' orders due to the automated retrieval and storage process of AutoStore. As for the 3PL, they get to enjoy the benefits as mentioned by my teammates previously, namely a more efficient use of space as well as higher productivity. So a potential 3PL candidate that can be used for our proposal would be SingPost. As the company already partners with many established online retailers such as Zalora, they could go and find out more smaller online retailers and offer them the use of AutoStore if they decide to build one. And since this arrangement has already been tried with success at Swiss Post, and due to the fast-growing nature of the e-commerce market in Singapore, we believe that this strategy is viable for companies like SingPost. So now I shall pass on my time to Chenny, who will conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Min. Now I will bring you back to the question that we have raised at the beginning of this presentation. Is the use of robotics worth the price? So there are several factors that we need to consider, and one of them is definitely the cost. The use of robotics system is very expensive, with Texas Instruments paying a cost of over $10 million to install AutoStore. However, the cost can be justified, as in another example, Amazon has achieved a cost savings of over $400 million from the use of Kiva robots. So as you can see from these two examples, whether using robots is worth the price, we need to consider both the cost and benefit. Secondly, the attitudes of workers towards the use of robotics is also important. This is because we need to retrain the workers to operate the robots, and this costs time and money. If the workers are resistant to these changes due to the fear of job replacement by the robots, the cost of retraining may eventually offset the benefits from the robots. Lastly, the compatibility of the robotics to the nature of goods of the business is important. From the example of AutoStore, large and bulky items could not be stored in the AutoStore because they could not fit into the relatively smaller storage bins. Furthermore, because time is required for the AutoStore system to process the orders, on-demand products that require high urgency in delivery would not be suitable for using AutoStore. Therefore, in conclusion, in order to answer the question whether is the investment worth the price, we need to consider three main factors. Firstly, the degree of benefits with respect to the cost. Secondly, the attitudes of workers towards robotics. And lastly, the compatibility of the robotic system to the goods of the company. With that, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Robolution. Judges, your comments, please.
My judges tell me don't be too tough. Yeah, but first of all, thank you, and it was a good, structured presentation, I have to say. It brings me from one end to another, so it was a good build-up. It gives me a feel of the industry, and then I would have loved that you highlighted to me where you want to target, but subsequently I knew, because the second speaker tried, or should I say the third speaker tried and explain the applications beyond Texas Instrument, or we call it TI. But one of the things I didn't get through is TI's nature of products, and I mean, probably Sherry probably knows more than this, without prior knowledge, okay, without prior knowledge. What I was trying to associate is that TI's nature of products and the purpose of AutoStore for them, the application versus the Zaloras. There was one key assumption that you made that was not articulated, is that it's a local stocking. Zalora might be going into piece pick. TI might not be a piece pick. Yeah, all right? It's very different nature of operations when you do that. I have not seen a clear case of the end-to-end cost per pick right to the end. So the Zaloras, you know, he might be picking a box of Nike shoe size 8, man size, you know, and TI might be picking a carton of calculators. So the piece pick might be different. I have not even talked about the margins at the end of the day. So it needs to put it into context, the value of that AutoStore for that specific industry, because it adds tremendous value. Otherwise, TI would not have embarked on this journey. It was a good example to change a lot of people about the paradigm of, do you want to do stocking in Singapore through AutoStore concept, which is highly effective, highly efficient in a Singapore context, and you are comparing to a Malaysia context. Be careful, Malaysia is a very big country. All right? Stocking in Shah Alam is not the same as stocking elsewhere, or stocking in an outskirt. The costs can change quite a lot. All right? Buying space from Swisslog, or you know, it may be different in Malaysia versus buying from Asing warehousing company as well. So there is a spectrum again. So there's a lot of value proposition that might not be very clear. So when you want to compare certain things in Malaysia and certain things in, not that I'm citing Malaysia or anything, okay? But when you compare that, there comes a distribution cost as well. So where's your distribution at the end of the day? Is it a domestic market? I'm trying to assume that it's a domestic market, because AutoStore is presumably, when the third speaker citing more of a Singapore, because Zalora is more of Singapore, domestic distribution. So I was trying to link, so am I going to do cross-border, or am I going to do domestic distribution, or am I going to fly it out? The dollars and cents needs to match up. I mean, as a consumer, you know, I can have products at a margin of 120% to a margin of 5%. So I need to know what to use, when to use, how to use a certain level. So if you can zoom it down, it was a really good case study. It was really well presented. I know Texas Instrument. I know their case of products. I know they are here. I know they are AutoStore. What are the similarities if I want to embark with Zalora and Amazon, etc.? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to relate. But it was overall a pretty good presentation. Thanks.
I totally agree. Good presentation. I like very, very practical. The steps, very clear, very well defined. Sure, you don't have 30 years of professional expertise in supply chain, so I think most of the team have this tendency to maybe oversimplify all the steps, or all the systems, all the solutions. That's why you put an AutoStore and you link the AutoStore to a sector and to all the sectors, and it's a bit too simplistic, I would say, but it's good. At least you show that you have discussed about the project and you try to find some solutions. Same, you cannot use I'm not talking about AutoStore, but only one system for all the solutions. One system will help you to solve all the solutions. And you have highlighted this very well by saying that maybe TI has a lot of products, different sizes, odd shapes, and so on. So you cannot put everything maybe in the AutoStore, and maybe it's not meant to put everything, and I think so. And it's a good system for certain sectors. You must look at the velocity as well, the throughput, the number of SKUs, the number of order line per hour, per day, and so on. And this will dictate the kind of systems you need. So this is something you need to understand. A solution must be customized or crafted according to certain requirements from the client. So e-commerce, you're talking about Zalora as an example, would never maybe use an AutoStore system because of the requirements of e-commerce requirements. Maybe AutoStore is not the right system because there's a lot of parameters. It's not just the cost of the systems, you know. Distribution is another cost. E-commerce is usually you pick one item, you know, and that's all. They have a lot of SKUs. They double, triple the number of SKUs every 6 months, every 12 months, and so on. So then you need to look at the system. If the system is scalable as well, versatile. They always use this word of very agile. You can expand the system very fast. But the speed, the velocity is very important too, you know, because you need to retrieve products very, very fast. When people order some products online, they want the order to be delivered within, first was 24 hours, now we are talking about 6 hours, then sometimes 4 hours, you know. So you need to be able to retrieve items from your operation within a couple of hours and deliver this very fast. Then you look at the kind of systems you need. And there are a lot of different systems. From Swisslog, from Chef, from all, there's a lot of companies. You cannot say this system is better than another system, but it depends on the solutions. And I think you are very clear, and I like the fact that there's a good flow between the 3 speakers. So it's very smooth and clear, and you try your best again at the end to give a conclusion which it makes sense. After 20 years or 30 years of working experience, you will be able to put the right systems in your presentation. Don't worry. It's okay. That's all for my part.
Well, I'm going to let the Swisslog person wrap up, right?
This was a Swisslog presentation, no?
Anyhow, I have to congratulate you on a very engaging presentation. I would say I will skip all of the technical pieces because my colleagues have talked about technical pieces, but I would say that if you're trying to sell me something, you've succeeded in selling me something. Yeah. And you've succeeded in selling me something, right, at the end of the day. So I think that's important. So congratulate you. I think well prepared, well structured, and I will let the lady wrap up.
Okay, so I think overall it's a very good presentation. I agree with the judges that like the flow is there, like the synergy. I can get the gist of what you guys are presenting. Other than aside from TI as a case study in terms of the robotics as a whole, how it's going to help. But maybe just some comments on when you talk about like the certain companies that can use this. Maybe what are the similarities and the differences that they actually share, that why you actually recommend them to have for the store at the end of the day. But overall, good job. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. Thank you, Robolution. Now we'll bring up